The most powerful people in the world almost never answer a direct question, and there's a secret reason why. Politicians, high-level negotiators, intelligence operatives, corporate executives, they all use a specific set of techniques that let them dodge questions, control conversations, and protect themselves without ever seeming defensive. And these techniques are dangerous because when you know how they work, you realize how much power you've been giving away every single time you answer a question directly. Most people treat questions like obligations. Someone asks, so you answer. But that's exactly how you lose control, because every time you give a straight answer, you're handing someone else leverage, information, and the ability to corner you. And the people who run rooms, the ones who never seem rattled, the ones everyone listens to without knowing why, they understand something you don't. They understand that the question is a trap, and your job isn't to answer it. Your job is to decide whether it's worth answering at all. So here's what you're about to learn. These are the exact secrets powerful people use to avoid giving straight answers, maintain control, and protect themselves in conversations. But here's the warning. These techniques can be used to manipulate, deceive, and gaslight people if you don't have integrity. Therefore, you need to understand how they work, not just so you can use them ethically to protect yourself and stop being cornered in everyday life, but so you can spot when someone is using them against you. Because right now, you're walking into negotiations, job interviews, arguments, even casual conversations, and you're answering questions automatically. You're giving people exactly what they're fishing for. You're revealing your position, your weaknesses, your bottom line, and you don't even realize you're doing it. And that's why these secrets change everything. Because the second you stop treating every question like something you have to answer, you stop losing power in conversations. So let's start with negotiations, because this is where the technique is most obvious and most lethal. Every single time you're negotiating, the person across from you is fishing for your bottom line. They ask what you're looking for, what you'd be willing to accept, what your current situation is, and if you answer any of those questions directly, you've already lost leverage, because now they know your range, they know your desperation, and they know exactly how little they can offer before you walk. The entire game is about information asymmetry. Whoever has more information controls the outcome. Therefore, when you give a direct answer, you're handing them the map to your vulnerabilities. That's why the best negotiators almost never state a number first. They deflect. They say things like, "I need to think about that," or "What range are you working with?" None of those are answers, but they force the other person to reveal their position first, which means you now have more information than they do. And the second you lock into a specific answer, you've eliminated every other option, which means they now know exactly what to deny you to make you uncomfortable. But when you stay vague, you can test their reactions, adjust based on what they reveal, and steer the entire conversation toward the outcome you wanted from the beginning. Now, politicians take this even further because they live in a world where every word can be used against them. So they developed a technique called bridging. Bridging is when someone asks you a question you don't want to answer, and instead of answering it, you acknowledge the question, pivot immediately, and talk about what you actually want to talk about. Reporter asks about a scandal. Politician says, "Look, what people really care about is jobs," and then just talks about jobs for 2 minutes. They didn't answer the question, but they didn't refuse to answer either. They just redirected the frame. And here's the thing, most people don't even notice, because the brain doesn't track whether the question was answered. It tracks whether the person kept talking confidently. As long as you sound certain, as long as you don't hesitate or stumble, most people will assume you answered and move on. When you let someone else's question dictate what you talk about, you're letting them set the agenda. But when you acknowledge their question and immediately shift to your talking point, you've taken the agenda back without ever seeming defensive. Let's go deeper, because there's another reason non-answers work, and it's psychological. People are hardwired to chase what they can't fully have. If you tell someone everything about yourself immediately, if you over-explain, if you give them total transparency, you become predictable, and predictable is boring. But when you hold something back, when you stay a little vague, when you don't spill everything in the first conversation, you create mystery, and mystery is magnetic. This is why people who talk less in social situations often seem more interesting than people who talk the entire time. It's not that they're saying better things, it's that they're leaving space for curiosity. They're not filling every silence with information, they're letting the other person wonder. Think about the person you know who everyone finds captivating. Chances are they don't overshare, they don't explain themselves constantly, they just exist, and people lean in because there's always something left unsaid. That's selective disclosure, and selective disclosure is a form of social power, because when you choose what to reveal and what to keep to yourself, you're the one painting the picture. Now, this also works as a protection mechanism, because not everyone asking you questions has good intentions. Some people are fishing for weaknesses, some people are looking for gossip, some people want ammunition, and if you're the type of person who answers every personal question honestly because you think it's polite, you're walking around with no boundaries. You're letting people into rooms they have no business being in, and eventually that information gets used. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it gets filed away, and when the moment comes, it gets weaponized. So when someone asks something too personal, something that feels like it's crossing a line, you don't have to shut them down aggressively. You just redirect. You say, "That's a long story," and change the subject. You say, "I'm still figuring that out," and ask them a question instead. You smile and say nothing. All of those are non-answers. None of them are rude, but all of them protect you. Leaders use vagueness not to hide, but to stay flexible. If you're running a company and someone asks you what your exact plan is, and you lay out every detail, you've just locked yourself into that plan. And if the situation changes, if new information comes in, if a better opportunity shows up, you can't pivot without looking inconsistent. But if you keep your language broad, if you say things like, "We're exploring options," or "We're monitoring the situation," you've left room to adjust. This is why corporate spokespeople say no comment more than people think. It's not always because they're hiding something. Sometimes it's because commenting too early commits them to a narrative before they have all the facts. And once you've committed, you can't walk it back without looking like you lied. But now we need to talk about the dark side, because this skill can be abused. If you're using non-answers to protect your position, maintain flexibility, and avoid being cornered, that's strategy. But if you're using them to deceive, manipulate, or avoid accountability, that's cowardice. And people can feel the difference, even if they can't articulate it. The key is intention. Are you refusing to answer because you're thinking, or because you're hiding? Are you staying vague because you're protecting your boundaries, or because you're trying to gaslight someone? Those distinctions matter. So here's how you use this ethically. You answer when it serves the conversation. You deflect when it protects you. You redirect when it keeps the frame. And you stay silent when nothing you say will improve the situation. You're not refusing to communicate. You're just being selective about what you give, when you give it, and why. Because real power isn't about having the best answer. It's about knowing when not to answer at all. The person who feels like they have to respond to everything, who feels obligated to explain themselves constantly, who can't sit with silence or ambiguity, that person is always reacting. And people who react don't control conversations, they survive them. But the person who can pause, who can deflect, who can smile and say, "I'll think about that," without flinching, that person is in control. Not because they're smarter, not because they're more confident, but because they understand that the question is a test, and passing the test doesn't mean answering correctly. It means deciding whether to answer it at all. And once you understand that, once you stop treating every question like an obligation and start treating it like an opportunity to steer, everything changes. You stop getting cornered, you stop oversharing, you stop feeling like conversations happen to you, and you start feeling like you're the one running them, not in some loud, dominating way, but in that quiet, calm way that makes people lean in and listen, because they can tell you're not playing the same game everyone else is. So the next time someone asks you a question you don't want to answer, pause. Don't panic, don't rush. Just pause and decide whether this is a question worth answering or whether it's a question worth redirecting. Because the second you realize you don't owe anyone immediate transparency, you'll stop giving it away for free. And the second you stop giving it away, you'll start commanding the kind of respect that doesn't need to be earned loudly. It just exists.